Welcome back to Spider-Man Shadow Dimension. So, in order to go in the order that the tutorial gave us, next we go to the Ultimate universe. In this case, with the first level tied to Electro. In due time.
The first time Peter Parker wore the black suit, he found himself losing control almost to the point of doing
Yeah, sometimes you get interesting trivia in the loading screens.
Oh yeah, that's right. In the Ultimate Universe, the symbiote is actually susceptible to electricity.
Weird smell. Oh, right. Fresh air. I could enjoy being out in the city.
Oh, Electro, if Hans Zimmer isn't doing the score.
Not enough fun. Let's go clubbing way.
You know.
Hold on.
Well, at the very least, his Spider-Man theme in that movie was great.
Yeah, it was.
And there you go. In this occasion, Electro just started using the rock in the beginning.
Wow, he actually does look like his amazing Spider-Man
there you go.
himself.
Joe, there you go, Dwix. That's gonna be a running gag about him not having pants.
That's kind of his thing in the Ultimate Universe, which is weird, because like when he first showed up in Ultimate Spider-Man Volume 2, he had clothes, so I never get why they did the whole new thing with him from there on.
And not to worry, in Amazing Spider-Man 2, he can somehow create a new pair of pants.
Alright. In this case, things are gonna get a bit different now. Since Spider-Man Ultimate is more suited for combat, that's gonna be a big thing for almost all of its chapters.
Now,
in this case, the power of the stone is allowing Electro to create this electric being of pure energy, essentially, which will function as the minions to defeat on this level.
Now,
anyway, go ahead, Joe, while I get info.
Again, in regards to it being more combat-based, you may think this is a bit heavy for Spider-Man. Well, that's because this is taking cues from the Ultimate Spider-Man video game. Basically, in that game, you have two campaigns, one where you play as Peter Parker, Spider-Man, and the other where you play as Eddie Brock/Venom. Of course, it's kind of obvious in the get-go that that was originally just meant to be a Venom game, so Spidey's kind of got a bit tacked on there. So here they're using the symbiote gameplay from Venom's campaign. I will say, I get why they put Spidey in the symbiote suit to make him different from Amazing Spider-Man. The ironic thing, though, is like, well, on the cover, though, it kind of makes Ultimate Spider-Man a bit visually similar. Like, okay, he's dark blue. 2099 is blue, with blue mainly, and then Noir is black. Like, you know, I mean, it makes that Amazing Spider-Man is literally the only one who looks to have red as the main color scheme, whereas the other all look to be black and blue.
The music even sounds like it's from Amazing Spider-Man 2.
Well, that's because Amazing Spider-Man was based off of the Ultimate Spider-Man universe.
Amazing Spider-Man 2 came out in 2014.
4 years after this game, it's probably a coincidence.
No. Well, actually, it might make sense because, again, remember, Tio, Amazing Spider-Man movies were based off of the Ultimate Spider-Verse.
These also introduced another concept, rescuing people. The animation is pretty identical to the one of the 2002 video game. You pick at the people, you then deposit them in another area, you give them a thumbs up, and they thank you. Easy enough. In this case, you have a time limit in a sense that you need to do it until before the water reaches the electricity and people get electrocuted.
No, don't be silly, Tio. If this was true to the Marvel source material,
they would be ungrateful bastards, yeah, I know. And the Ultimate Universe, well, they still are, but they kinda are a bit different, especially because, again, heroes in the Ultimate Universe don't get a fun time. Like, almost at all. Even before the Ultimatum wave, things were not that
Spider-Man
great.
can stop the nuclear apocalypse and he'd still get blamed for something.
Probably.
Anyway, for some technical infos, the character of Electro, at least for the classical one we're gonna go with, was created in the 60s, still by Stan Lee and Steve Ditko. There were two incarnations of the character, one Maxwell Dillon, the other Francis Fry, but for the sake of the Ultimate continuity, I think it's
Max.
It's still Max, yeah, true.
It's a different continuity for him in this regard. Like, in the Ultimate Universe, he starts off as a hitman for Kingpin.
Yeah, and also that's the reason why it looks a lot different. Remember, Dweebs, the original costume of Electro is quite silly, so even the naked blue guy, here is quite. It's still an improvement.
Yeah, I've seen his
It's similar to Vulture in a sense.
I've
it's a
seen the
concept
old
that
one.
will not fit in the modern media at all.
I can see why even in the case of the Vulture, they changed it so that it looks similar, but it's more
hold on,
but it's more today.
Yeah, hold on. There's an interesting joke coming up.
Ew! Do you and your generator, like, need some time alone?
It doesn't help that he's naked.
I thought I was gonna play Itsy Bitsy Spider using the
No.
powers.
No, basically now it's gonna work like this. We're gonna have to fight Electro a couple of times on this level until the final boss time.
Oh, you turn this place into a disco.
Probably.
Wow, that is foreshadowing of the Amazing Spider-Man 2 movie.
This entire level is foreshadowing the Amazing Spider-Man 2.
Well, again, like I said, Dwibs, the Amazing Spider-Man movies are based off of the Ultimate Spideyverse, so it checks out.
Check who was the writer. The writer in this case was Dan Slott, in case you're wondering, which is a professional comic book writer.
For the game?
Yeah, for this one. Yeah.
Huh.
He had a lot of work with Spider-Man himself, so
Yeah.
he has experience.
And yet his own Spider-Man run kind of
like
sucked.
a lot of his works.
The main problem with his Spider-Man run, which is only just now finally ending after over 10 years.
He seems to have a grudge against Peter in general. Like, he actively hates the character.
Yeah, like seriously, he had Peter get killed off. He suggested that Doc Ock, yes, that Dr. Octopus would be a better Spider-Man than Peter Parker himself.
I mean, if you don't like a character, then fair enough. I mean, just because you work at a company doesn't mean you have to like them. I guess the issue really is he let his dislike get in the way of good storytelling.
I think
Yeah,
the problem
because
is
once
like
again, it fits with Marvel's agenda of having stories that are more propaganda than anything. In this case, it's propaganda of the ideas of the author in regards to the character rather than just telling a good story.
I would never be able to tell that he's the same guy who actually pitched Renew Your Vows, which is literally a Spider-Man story that's essentially Spidey being the Incredibles. A family of superheroes, yes, where Peter gets to stay married with MJ and has a kid that did not die or get kidnapped by Norman Osborn.
Anyway, this is... Yes, Jova, go ahead.
Speaking of which, Sins of the Father is still in continuity, sadly.
Oh, seriously?
Yeah.
Like...
Hey.
Our salvation lies in the Father's sins.
In case you're wondering...
Getting into the Marvel comics at this point.
Dweebs, we already discussed about this with you. That's not an excuse. At least we have me and Jova had the cognition of cause about knowing what he's about.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, not to mention
Like,
the other.
I don't blame you. I don't blame you if you don't want to read bad comics, but don't use this as an excuse to say, "Oh, comic books are not worth reading."
Well, the problem is, one other problem is that it's more of a concern, really. The really bad stories, don't they end up screwing good ones over?
Well, okay. This is...
Depends.
That, what you're describing is a retcon, Dwibs. If it says something
But
like
that
one
also
more...
happens in other mediums, though. So by your logic, every medium should be
Well,
avoided.
there is such a thing as good retcons, Adrian.
Well, Dwibs...
So, and there are also good retcons in comics. Again, by
Yeah.
your logic, we should avoid all mediums.
Yeah, I
Just
mean...
the problem is with comics is that there's so many.
Oh, hold on. We're about to get something a bit important here. Basically, it's time for after this wave, we're about to get the main gimmick that differentiates Ultimate Spider-Man from the other Spider-Man.
The Mingy?
What?
I thought you said. I thought that was the name of these little creatures, the Mingy.
No. No.
What are they called?
They're just electric creatures. Oh, that's not in this room? Well, whatever, it's either that or in the next. Anyway...
Going back to what we were saying about comics, so I mean, yes, there are a lot of comic strips, but that's what certain jumping on points are for, to be fair.
What's that TV trope called when there's so many of something that it becomes really hard for new readers to get into?
Continuity is hard, I think.
Well, there's that, and there's also archival panic, I think.
I think I can see where you're coming... I think I can see where you're coming from, Dibs, although take my word for it, with DC, you can jump on with Convergence, because that's pretty much
No,
the
that's the
continuity
thing,
nowadays.
That's pretty much a reboot, isn't it?
Yeah, that's the thing. DC
Yeah.
reboots its universe every now and then.
And that's exactly what I'm
The
talking.
thing is, it probably isn't that difficult if we're talking about in terms of how things are now, because I'm pretty sure there are very helpful, very in-depth online guides
There are.
Bro,
that teach you where to jump on.
Yeah.
Also, Dibs, if you're concerned about continuity, you could also try Elseworld stories, at least for the DC stuff, which are stories that actively work to be alternate continuities, doing fresh takes, and being separate, similar to how you jumped in, for example, in the Batman Nolan trilogy, which functions exactly that way.
Not to mention that a lot of comics themselves sometimes come with footnotes that do describe past events, which can be helpful. And like we said, there are quite a few continuity reboots which are essentially meant to be jumping on points. Like New 52, that was a reboot, but a jumping on point. DC Convergence, which thankfully undid New 52, that was a jumping on point, and it's part of the reason why DC Comics are doing a lot better than Marvel Comics these days. You know, aside from the fact that they're actually treating the characters with dignity.
Oh, Jova, to be fair, though, I still don't like the idea that they had to actually butcher the idea of Watchmen for this to happen.
It's such a hilarious parallel. DC has better comics but worse films. Marvel has worse comics but better films.
A lot of people
Yeah.
think that Apollo Justice should have been a new starting point.
It's well,
Fair enough, I think it was going to be.
it was supposed to be, but then Capcom at the time executively mandated that Shu Takumi not only involve Phoenix, but he also had to rework the final case to line up with real-life events going on with Japan's law system at the time.
Yeah,
Which I'm good.
I know they wanted to shoehorn Phoenix in there.
Oh, they also wanted to shoehorn in a jury system. More on that later.
Well, we got that eventually, but it... Oh, yeah.
We're about to get the cutscene. Okay.
But it didn't matter at the end.
Because we never got that game.
We did get Apollo Justice.
No,
No,
the one
no,
with
I-
Great
the
Ace
end, we got
Attorney.
Great Ace Attorney.
Jeez.
And there you go. We're starting to walking out.
Wow.
So yeah, that's the main gimmick. Essentially a simple berserk mode which activates the full power of the Black Suit symbiote.
Again, taking from Venom's campaign in the Ultimate Spider-Man game.
Yeah, the good thing is the more you hit enemies, the bar regenerates. So it's not a thing that drops immediately, and it encourages you to fight instead of just hanging around. So compared to other, power break mode that are in other beat 'em up games, this is actually refreshing and more encouraging towards the player. So I really like that.
Yeah.
Also, a set of the mini achievements are also tied to that, like maintain it for like 1 minute straight or eat enough enemies with a shockwave tied to it. So they're going pretty creative with it.
Yeah, you get a bit of energy back for what you use.
Yeah, you regenerate health as well.
Again, my only issue... Oh, go.
It makes the Ultimate Spider-Man to stand compared to the other. We'll see also what the other Spider-Man actually will get for their own personal skill. Go ahead, Jonah.
Again, my only issue with Ultimate Spider-Man in this game is like, well, visually he's awfully similar to 2099 and Noir, ironically.
And also cherish it, Jova. The Ultimate Universe was completely removed from the Nintendo DS version of this game. For some reason that I don't understand.
Same reason why they got rid of 2 universes in Edge of Time.
I know, but in that case it was right from the get-go. In the DS version of the game, it's just a thing. I mean, I understand for the plot to be a bit different and the levels to be structured differently. Also, we have different villains altogether, so it counts literally as a different version.
Wow,
of
that
the
Mook is an amazing shield against that laser.
Yeah, in that case, well, no, actually, that's also a mini set of achievements would be actually have the other mooks being hit by the laser of the green mooks. So there's also that. I was also doing for that, but that's also another good point to talk about. The mooks usually come in 3 variety. The ranged ones that they shoot at you, the melee one that they just charge it in, and then the slightly bigger ones that they take a bit of skills and sometimes they parry your attacks, so you need to use launchers to actually finish them. They give enough variety overall. Sometimes you get also a much bigger move which functions as a mini boss, but it also it's relatively very sporadic. And hold on.
Sure you are.
Still with no pants, unfortunately.
Electro is even more powerful now. Strike when
Yeah,
his
thanks,
energy
madame, we
is
know
down.
that. Yeah, here's another thing. Madame Web occasionally telling you some minor hints. Sometimes very helpful,
lot of the
other
hints
times
aren't really-
not much. Well, it's a mixed bag, it's a half and a half situation.
Do not let Electro
Anyway, it's also a good time
regenerate
also
his
to
health
talk
above
about
the
the
generator.
mood idea of these type of levels. As I mentioned, the Amazing Spider-Man levels were gonna be, it seems they're kind of based on the 60s cartoons, similarly. They have a consistent mood, mostly around comedy, despite having a very base serious story that goes around.
Yeah.
They're heavily based on jokes and comedy. The Ultimate levels jumps a bit around. This first one with Electro is mixed. The second level, which I'm not gonna tell you who is in, is absolutely fantastic.
Yeah.
But the third one completely shifts into quite essentially a surreal horror game.
Whoa! Oh my god, funny you mentioned that too, because that's exactly what happens in Amazing Spider-Man 2, the game adaptation of the movie. Well,
for comparison, the 2099 level would be consistently mixed in terms of mood balance. Miguel will occasionally still crack jokes, but the story being, in a setting similar to Blade Runner would be still relatively serious. And the noir levels instead will be almost completely taken seriously, being the noir setting that they're in.
with still some good battle snark. Yeah, I think the best way to describe the Amazing Spider-Man universe's tone in this game is adventurous. Yeah, Michael. That's a good mix of
Well, yeah,
action,
I mean,
comedy, beat 'em up stuff.
Well, to be fair, you can tell that with the second level, they just wanted to do a level tied to that particular villain instead of just being an ultimate universe level. Trust me, guys, for those who don't know, trust me, you'll understand in due time, believe me.
The thing about the Ultimate Universe, again, which does affect this game's status restraints, is that Ultimate Universe was, okay, it was Marvel's equivalent to the New 52 at the time, except, the original universe didn't have to die for it. The difference is like, well, with the Ultimate Universe, they were a lot more serious, a lot more, I guess I have to say the word edgy, because, we have characters swearing up a storm, yo.
Not just that, Jova, they wanted to be more realistic, quote-unquote.
That's why they made even Doctor Strange's powers scientific-based.
And then they
Because
ceremoniously
even
killed
though-
very early on.
Actually, that's right, Shiro. You know how Doctor Strange is all about the mysticism and sorcery.
Yeah.
Sorcery. They made Doctor Strange scientific.
And don't even get me started about the cannibalism.
Oh, God.
They made
Well,
Hulk.
that's always a
They
fun
made
subject.
Incredible Hulk a cannibal.
The point is Marvel Comics.
Why?
I get that
Because
Strange-
Marvel Comics is run by a retard called Joe Quesada, Shiro.
I get that.
Yes,
I get that Strange is a doctor, but
Not just that, Dweebs, the way he dies in the Ultimate event is unnecessarily gruesome. Like,
Oh,
God damn it! God damn it! Liz, I'm a doctor, not a
by
sorcerer.
the way, by the way, you want to talk science? Let's talk about Ultimate Iron Man's origin. Let's see. You see, a baby was born, but that poor baby had a brain tumor here and there. So instead, they had to implement a monkey brain inside of him, which caused him to grow sporadically, or rather his head would be too big for his body, it would have to even out, and he would be living terribly. I am, of course, referring to Tony Stark of the Ultimate Universe. Yep.
which, by the way, is extremely alcoholic.
So, yeah.
Still snarky.
Yes.
Yes, but 9 times out of 10
is the whole Tony being a bit of an alcoholic thing done better than in Iron Man 2?
I still say no. That's the thing.
Sadly,
Dweebs.
no.
That's the
thing,
thing, Dweebs. The entire plot point of Tony Stark being an alcoholic is something that is traced from the original universe, from a storyline simply called The Demon in the Bottle. It was nice from what it was trying to tell, but it was still simple and had a conclusion.
That's why we gave that character trait to Captain Marvel, but more on her later.
Not just
Iron Man 2 was the.
Whoever wrote the Ultimate Universe thought that that was the only characterization Iron Man could have.
Yeah, Iron Man 2. I mean, you guys know one of my big criticisms of that. Iron Man 2 is the worst of the whole.
The
You're supposed to have
entire
a
plot of
dramatic.
that movie is Tony getting over his massive ego.
Basically, yeah.
And setting up for
just gonna-
Avengers.
I don't want
Yeah,
to put up for that for 2
I was
hours.
just gonna. Hang on, sorry, I haven't finished. Because one of the biggest pet peeves of the MCU is that you have a dramatic moment undercut by unnecessary comedy. Iron Man 2 is pretty much the whole. It's pretty much a whole movie of that. Yeah, Iron Man 2 is pretty much that the whole movie.
It's just a drag.
And
Anyway,
I'm not saying that other MCU films aren't guilty of that, but Iron Man 2 was the worst of that.
I mean, the sad thing is that we still have to commentate on Iron Man 2 because that thing gives a very minuscule contribution to the timeline.
Fine.
Hey, sure. You're gonna be in for the good MCU, you gotta be in for the bad, too.
Yeah.
David, that means you also got to sit through for the Dark World.
Well, yeah, of course we gotta sit through that.
Electro? How about
Look.
Again, whoop-de-doo.
I mean, though, look, it's worth it, though, to get all the good the MCU did
Did
bring.
we even finish watching that?
You quit in the middle.
Actually, sure, yes, we did finish watching that.
We did finish? Okay.
Also, there was an enemy floating in the air, but whatever. Anyway, well, much like also what Joe was mentioning briefly, another thing that the Ultimate Universe kinda doubled in was the cannibalism. Joe mentioned Hulk, but in the Ultimatum way, event, for some reason, they made Blob eating up the Wasp. That's
And then
for no real reason, by the way.
And then Ant-Man bit his head off.
Oh, that's not even, that's opening another kind of world. Basically, you know how in the Ant-Man movie, Hank Pym is this person who is filled with regret in terms of his wife and everything?
Yeah.
In the Ultimate Universe, he's a very abusive bastard.
Is that where that meme came from?
Okay. Here's the thing. See, Hank Pym and Janet had a very strained relationship in the original Marvel Universe. But of course, thankfully, they eventually grew out of that stupid arc and, well, went on. So, of course, like most bad things that were usually a footnote in the original Marvel Universe before things started going to crap, they made it the main focus of them in the Ultimate Universe. Okay.
For no reason.
Speaking as someone who's very optimistic, when it comes to the Ultimate Universe, your best bet is Ultimate X-Men and Ultimate Spider-Man. Like, even Ultimate...
Universe sounds awful.
Again, Shuri, it was what Marvel thought was new and hip with the kids of a new day.
They ended up, the universe became so bloated and so a mess that they actually killed it off. And keep in mind, a thing that I need to stress out, according to Marvel, practically everything is canon in their multiverse. The TV
How
shows...
does that even work?
The TV
It's a
shows, the
multiverse.
video game, hold on, the video game, the novels, even something like the commercial, like Spider-Man selling you pastries, that's an alternate universe. Basically, Shiro, every universe is registered like that. As you can imagine, there's a
Are we
fuck
going on
ton of...
multiverse theory here?
Actually, Shuri, it's not a theory, it's canon.
Actually, yeah, and guess what? The digits are at least 4 when it comes to counting universes.
Basically, Shuri, the universe you're most familiar with is the 616 universe. Basically, each universe has a number decoded with.
I actually don't remember what is considered Universe 1.
In fact, even the MCU is considered an alternate universe.
Thankfully no, Dweebs. In this case, we just need to rescue some other operator which will deactivate the generators which allow us to proceed and then ultimately defeat Electro.
You know a funny thing, though? The MCU also started out being based off of the Ultimate Comics. Thankfully, though, it made them better.
Thankfully, they just went away from that.
It did keep some plot elements, like, you know, they made it so that Hulk was actually created as a means of trying to replicate the super soldier serum. Yeah, that's a thing in the Ultimate Universe. A lot of supervillains or heroes are created in an attempt to replicate the super soldier serum that made Captain America. The results did not go so well. Like, let's see, in some cases it made the Hulk, in another case it caused Norman Osborn to become the Hulk, Green Goblin. Yeah, Green Goblin's kind of the Hulk in the Ultimate Universe.
Has there ever been a superhero film that had an entirely original story, like no comic book story borrowing?
There was
There have
Zoom.
been. There have been. Dwebs, let me...
Mega Minds.
Well,
True, that too.
Well, depends. There's like, guys, Jova, is Dark Knight Returns based on anything?
Yes, it's based off of a Frank Miller comic page.
Sorry, Dark Knight Rises. Dark Knight Rises.
Yes.
Particularly Nightfall.
And Dark
Alright.
Knight Returns, remember?
It has that Nightfall part, but
Based on anything.
whatever, I guess.
I
I guess you
mean,
could consider it.
I mean, to be fair, I mean, I think Dwebs was asking, like, well, for a completely original superhero tale, not one that, you know, is based off of or something. Like,
No, I meant like say like it has a Marvel / DC character, but the story's entirely original.
Oh, well, I mean, I guess if you want to go into technicalities, most of the MCU. Like, I mean,
I would say Wonder Woman, as you said, her origin's been changed so freaking much.
Superman Returns was not based off of any comics in particular. Heck,
No,
heck.
it was a sequel. It was a sequel to the second movie.
Don't think too hard about it. Black Panther is definitely not based off of any comic book arc and
Actually,
events.
no, Jova. From what I've checked, is based on the introduction of Killmonger. Even the scene with the waterfall is nearly identical.
Huh, go figure. Didn't know that.
There we go.
Anyway, in case you... Well, I'm just posting here for the others, but if you have like a lot of minutes to spare, is a complete list of the different universes.
Yep.
There's like a fuck ton of them.
Don't worry though.
I am.
Don't worry though.
Basically, we're operating on the idea of that Stephen King theorized. If you just change, if there's like a single idea of a change in an action that you're gonna do in a day. Like for example, am I gonna drink coffee or tea this morning? Depending on the actions, a multiverse is created, one where I drink coffee and one where I drink tea.
So determinism and the theory that time is
Actually,
linear.
Yeah, these of course ramifies into possibly infinity, which even by just scratching the surface will be a nightmare. So people tend
Don't
to
worry,
still
I've had in-depth conversations about this
like
before. I
people
know.
still to limit that when it comes
Not
to
to worry,
talking that way.
actually-
Yes, Liv?
Actually, Tio's given me an idea of what I can do with that list. I've been up since 4 o'clock this morning, so I can use that, read it, and then I'll fall asleep.
So, okay. So basically, Shirin Dwebs, the universe you might like is Earth 65, which is basically a universe where America is Britain.
Yeah.
Why would I like that?
The majority of the citizens are
No.
civilized.
No. Basically, my home of America is your home of Britain, which means you actually get good weather. It's also the home reality of Spider-Gwen.
I
Spider-Gwen
suppose we'd
lived
actually get proper snow.
You get
Let's see.
snow. Seriously, I drove through a blizzard in March.
Let's see, there's also Earth 231, where Reed Richards killed the other members of the Illuminati at their first meeting.
Our snow is still shit, that's the point.
I drove through a blizzard in March. That is
Anyway,
real
in
stuff.
case you're wondering, the Earth, the universe of the Marvel Cinematic Universe, it's called Earth 199,999. Oh,
Yeah.
199,999.
9999999.
And then there's Earth 5.
Overcomplicated.
And then there's Earth 522, which is the home reality of Captain
Why can't
England.
you just label them 1, 2, 3, 4, 5?
Sure, Roy. There's actually a universe called Earth Zero.
Surprisingly enough, Shiroi, again, amongst these alternate realities, the only one that I remember distinctly that has been officially discontinued is the Ultimate version.
Don't
Yeah.
worry, though, they brought over a lot of their
Anyway,
Ultimate characters.
Enough of a multiverse theory for now. Time to face Electro finally.
I will say this,
But
though.
since it's using the power of the stone to augment,
Dr. Manhattan!
Hold on. Of course. It's a good thing that we don't stare at this junk. So here's how it's gonna work. Spider-Man has noticed that the rain kinda sorta harms him. In true tradition of Electro, water is his weakness. So what is the Spider gonna do? He's gonna have to find a way to jump on the dome. For now, we'll just have to... oh shit. For now, we're gonna have to avoid his attack. Then to jump on the dome. In order to break it, yeah, the dam, in order to break it as much as possible, in order for Electro to be flushed away.
Nice and
Of course.
Who's voicing him? He sounds familiar.
Electro, I'm gonna check immediately. Again, it's probably another role reprisal.
Get that junk off of me!
Give me a second. To find.
Let's step it up!
Come on, step it up.
Yes.
Hop it over.
Basically, Thomas F. Wilson voices Electro.
Oh, that's Brit Biff.
Yeah,
I thought he sounded familiar.
Which, according
He voices
here,
someone in the
or-
animated series, I believe.
Yeah, the Spectacular Spider-Man. He still voiced Electro in. No, actually, no. He voiced Sergeant Stan Carter, called AKA Seed Eater. Yes, that's an actual name of a character. Don't ask him.
It's actually a character who's tied into the origins of Venom in the original comics, go figure.
Yeah.
Basically,
Anyway, now we're on the dam. It's easy as fuck. Just keep avoiding the attacks, and Electro will be so stupid, but constantly hitting the dam will actually damage it until it will break. Anyway, go ahead, Joe.
oh yeah, I will give the Ultimate Universe this though. It gave us Ultimate Nick Fury.
And Miles Morales. I mean, the idea of killing Peter and actually having Miles Morales at first, at least, seemed a good one. It was an occasion where it seemed like they were actually trying.
Until it turned out, oh surprise, surprise, Peter's actually just hiding. Yeah, basically, they had a very well drawn out bout where the Ultimate Spider-Man died, and Miles Morales had to. Well, okay, Miles Morales didn't come immediately after his death, but basically, Miles Morales was in his
They did
Spidey.
twice, Joe. I remember we tried to hint that the Spidey was killed in Ultimatum when he clearly wasn't.
That reminds me also, how did they actually destroy the Ultimate Universe? Because, like, I mean, Ultimatum was originally supposed
Secret
to do it,
Wars,
but...
Joe.
Oh,
Wars
yeah,
2,
Secret
I
Wars.
think. There you
Oh,
go.
yeah.
Time for a quick event, and we're done.
So basically, now go figure. The Nick Fury of the Ultimate comics, okay, they made a counterpart for him in the 616 universe, who's Nick Fury Jr. Yep, turns out the original Fury had a kid who's black.
I can't believe Spidey just killed Electro.
He does it in Amazing Spider-Man 2 as well.
I can't believe Electro is fucking dead.
Well, he didn't use water then, remember, Joe? He overloaded him with electricity.
Either way, dead.
Also, I was expecting more puns.
Madame Web just did one.
Well, most of them come from Spider-Man, so.
Anyway, there you go. That's overall. It's not my favorite of Ultimate levels, but it's serviceable enough.
I think I know which one's your favorite.
Well, obviously. Well, to be fair, Jova, that level still has some very bullshit elements. But
Oh, it
to be
does.
fair, Jova, they're actually made on purpose like that, so
Yeah.
I don't mind.
Yeah.
That's
Are you
Anyway.
sure it's fine?
You'll
trust me,
see.
Dweebs, in due time. But, and again, remember, I have more patience than thou.
I am Spider-Man Shattered Dimensions and I'm fine.
Anyway, now that we're done for this first level, the next time, well, the next part will be the first level of the 2099 universe against Hobgoblin. See you for that.
See you then.
See ya.